Emily. Here's my Care Bear. We were out at KFC today, and there was this homeless guy out in the front that he came in with no pants on, with his butt cheeks showing, and he had a sweatshirt on covering up his man parts, and my dad gave him money for food to make sure he got some food, some lunch. I was surprised he did that. But yeah, this guy was old. He was like probably mentally ill, probably doing meth. He looked like his bones was sticking out of his face. Probably about 48, very old. And like, it was really bad. Like, he came in and like, you think of the old cowboy days, like he's dying there, and my dad gave him food and he ate in the front. And then when we left the place, he had his pants down, his butt cheeks were showing. It was gross. But yeah, I'm used to seeing nudity. But I was playing computer games with my cousin Tony earlier, and she's lesbian, and she's been practicing a long time. Her family are biker kind of people. We have a lot of like biker people, baby boomer generation people, and baby boomers are the most abused generation of all generations. You'll go to any nursing home or place and you'll ask, and he has my dad, he has bipolar disorder. It's usually from being hit in the head. Like, you're like, oh, you're lucky you have it good. I used to get beat, and my ass used to get beaten when I was younger. And a lot of them are belted, the wrong side of the belt. Or if if he made a mistake with his instrument, he got beat up. If he, I remember one time he told me that his mom used to like real hard about bad grades, or if a kid came around and was a threat, that she would watch to see who would win the fight. There was this different kind of parenting in the baby boomer generation, because in the 50s it was all perpetuated for to be perfectionists and to be the ideal. It was the ideal marriage that was an unrealistic approach on things. And the backfiring effect about that was all kinds of trauma with a lot of people. You ask a lot of people, even baby boomers today, they will tell you that they were not treated right, why they have bipolar disorder or mental illness problems. When I was traumatized, which I more than once, I started having like throwing up non-stop, and a lot of people will tell you, oh, it's a mental thing, it's an anxiety thing. They don't know what to say or how to explain what it is or what's spiritually going on. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to say, oh, here's some medication and get good sleep and exercise and all that. That's all good stuff. Last night I was having nightmares, and I dreamt like a woman came to me, we're having lesbian sex. I'm not lesbian, but my cousin Tony is, and we were talking and playing computer games earlier, and she is lesbian, has been practicing a long time, and a lot of them do meth. And my spirit a lot of times will go off to places and go off to different random meth labs around like El Cajon. It could be random, really dirty, musty place like out in Fresno, it looks like a dump, and all of a sudden there's a awful trailer. And a lot of those places are run by madams. You think of like old cowboy days. My hair even looks like old cowboy days right now. You think of these old madams. Some of them are like 43 or 44. But I remember I met this road worker guy in El Cajon. He was on a bike, and I was with my ex-boyfriend who, he got a girl pregnant right after we broke up. And it was one of the shortest relationship, and his daughter's like 12 years old now. But he didn't like this guy that would come around, and his wife, they usually start with normal jobs, because I've met prostitutes where they were like a bartender, because I had a friend she was friends with a call girl who used to be a bartender in Balboa Park, and like a really nice bartending spot, but she later on started prostituting. It's more of a pleasure thing. A lot of them start doing cocaine. They usually do it with $100 bills, and smoke weed, smoke meth, and have meth labs. They do a pleasure thing. A lot of them have a tongue ring. Like my cousin has a tongue right at the very end, and it's usually indication you're bisexual or gay. It's a vibrating tongue ring, and my cousin has a tongue ring. It's the lower, a very end tongue ring, and her sister has a tongue ring also. And we have a lot of bikers and trauma in her family. And the 1960s, the baby boomer generation was not treated right. A lot of them have mental illness problems. It's from being treated really bad. When one of my uncles would confront my grandma about it, she'd start crying. So, oh, you used to beat me up when I was younger. And then she'd start crying about it. Because Dolores was selfish, okay? She would drink her smoothies out in her bikini outside and didn't really want to raise 8 kids, but it just kind of happened. And parenting is very hard. It's really hard to be always on it, especially if you have 8 kids, which they were all hers from the same man, but her husband was Catholic, so they didn't believe in birth control, so they had a bunch of kids until the doctor told her she couldn't have any more kids, or if you do, she'll die, because her body was not physically able to have any more kids. Because in the Catholic religion, a lot of it in old school was perpetuated to do things old-fashioned. Why they had 8 kids. She was not a Catholic. She was not Christian religious. She was, even on her obituary, which she died, it does not specify what her religion was. Her father was a Freemason. All the Masonic symbols around her room when I walked in her deathbed area. She was all religions. All, I like to say, National Geographic. That was her belief. National Geographic, science, and we're from monkeys kind of a thing. That kind of a thing. My spirit goes off to random places, and which is useful because you're dealing with discernment here. My cousin smokes meth, okay? She's gone frail down to nothing, and she's old now, older than even my eldest sister, and it destroys the body little by little. And I had a lot of friends who got addicted to that. Like, I had a friend who'd come into parties. We hated when she would come into parties, because then she was a bad influence, and she always do it with gay friends of hers in the back rooms of things. And Michelle, who is a big, thick white girl who acts black, who has a black pimp, who walks in there, all G, all like she's one of those swaggerish kind of black, white girls who acts black, who has the build, has the body type, smoking and doing coke with $100 bills in front of her mom in an area where I grew up there. And I was thinking, oh, gross, and then her pimp beats her up and all that. And a bunch of black girls would arrive at parties, crashing our party, and they'd be like, oh, maybe I could smoke meth with that Alexis girl in the back row. And it was like, oh, man, get her out of here. And back then when we were young, we thought we were too cool to talk about spiritual things. She would start mumbling and jumbling about Jesus, because in voodoo and weird religions, there's their magic Jesus, their Lucky Charm Jesus. You're talking about Jesus. And we were all looking at her like, hell no, like, get the hell out of here. We couldn't stand it when you're talking about these rants about Jesus that are spiritual, weird, tweaker rants, and we wouldn't want her at the party. We were drinking margaritas. We wanted to be cool, and that was just not cool in her 20s to hang around her, because she just babbling about nothing, really, and she really was just looking to score dick there. All the guys said, oh, why don't you F me? Guy comes here. Most guys are the ones that approach a girl, but she's the one dragged on the floor with some guy, and that was embarrassing to see at, like, a kickback or whatever, like, out at the park, whatever, and a bunch of black girls would arrive, and there'd be, like, a bunch of alcohol, and, like, and then some black guy comes out of there, and things get all weird, and you're all falling asleep on some dirty-ass carpet, and just weird stuff like that. But my spirit goes off to, like, weird random places like Fresno's the worst. Talk about cowboy country. Fresno's like just big driveway with a cat litter box everywhere. A lot of them are road workers and Mexican laborers. And some Mexican laborers, they've done that their whole lives. They're farmers. They do, like, their honest trade. But some are in a drug trade, or prostitution, or madam work. Like I'm saying, in El Cajon. And my spirit will go off to some random, like, trailer lab out in, like, a dump area with a trailer. And you could tell that these people are going to have, like, guns, and, like, they're real sketchy and dangerous. And like, Ed Wayne Gacy, I looked him up. His dad used to call him Patsy, and he was trying to encourage him to not be gay or bisexual. So he would beat him up and try to be real hard on him and make him tough. But instead, it went the other way around. Ed Wayne Gacy started becoming effeminate and playing around with bisexuality. Eventually, he started attacking young boys and drugging them and doing drugs with them and using them, murdering them, using their bodies and playing around with that. But everyone likes to just toss in the side all the spiritual sense and all the trauma that went along with Gacy, because his dad used to beat his ass up. And my dad, how he says, oh, you got it good, because my dad used to beat my ass up. And this is the thing about the baby boomer generation. They were the worst treated. In 1967, Gacy started doing his crimes and hanging around gay bars and picking up young men, promising them prizes. It's always promising of weed or money for some fellatio. And he was lonely, and his wife and him divorced, and he was just wanting a quick orgasm. He started creating cults where they were playing around with pornography. And some of these guys are from respectful backgrounds, and they were like mechanics, they were businessmen, they were married, they're in politics. You think of Biden's son, they found porn on his laptop with him with the underage Asian girls, and they just dusted it under the rug and just like, oh, Biden's son, whatever, it's Biden's son, he'll pay it off, shut up, be quiet, don't say anything about it. You didn't see that, right? Because Biden's son, they could pay off all of that. And this goes on, and think of it. That guy used to be in the politics. His coworker friends, the people who hired, the Ripper crew, the Chicago Ripper crew, he knew. Those guys were into cannibalism. In ancient Ireland, there are cults where they practice cannibalism and a cult to form incest, gross groups. They usually got found out and they were all put to death last minute. And it was hard to find because they were living in caves, like the Hills Have Eyes kind of people, deformed people who were into all that. Probably worshipped Hecate and weird, like, goddesses stuff. Goddess worship. It started small and then got big. But a lot of these people were from normal families. They had business jobs, and all of a sudden they started filming pornos at their little backroom events, and then eventually that became more popular rather than just talking about work stuff. So they started playing around a little bit with it, and then it grew big to hardcore drug use, meth, which is a numbs it in the brain. It just zaps you, just turns you into, I used to call Alexis crispy lips. Crispy lips! Ah! We used to make fun of her because she would come out with her crispy lips doing meth with some gay guy, and all I could feel is a bunch of, like, fairy magic here, a bunch of fruitcake magic. Feel the fruitiness here. Oh, yes, out in Hillcrest, going out in gay bars, and a lot of those guys are raped. And in trauma, your spirit, your soul will go out different places, and you'll go through stages of being sick, going on medication. I've been on promethazine for years because of trauma, because of my stomach. And people always say, oh, mental illness problems. Yes, yeah, mental health. Why are you sweating in the middle of the night? And why are you having nightmares in the middle of the night? Why are you having this and that? Why are you having sickness problems? Why are you throwing up nonstop? Look up Wayne Gacy's survived victim who died of AIDS eventually. He was bisexual. He was hanging around gay bars, really dangerous gay bars, and he was offering him weed, and he smoked it, and he put some rag over his face with drugs and abducted him and beat him up, and someone else was watching. And this guy had organized cult groups, underground things going on. Don't tell me I don't think this doesn't go on still. Come on now. And it's been going on for centuries, since ancient Ireland and all this other pervert gross stuff. I've seen a lot of trauma, and I know what goes on. People will always cop out and say, oh, it's mental illness problems. Oh, he's just going insane. My dad gave that homeless guy money and his pants were totally down. Who else is going to feel sorry for a guy like that? When someone's down and out of their mind, they don't even have luggage on the street, and they're that out of their mind, they don't even have a cell phone. There's some homeless people who have a cell phone. It's a really serious thing, and you're seeing a lot of it. A lot of times it does shoot me into like a traumatized state, or I feel like I'm turning to water dealing with it for years now. And yes, the baby boomer generation is the most traumatized of all groups. Why? A lot of them smoked weed, did LSD, like my dad did LSD. He lived in the streets. He did all that. He had people threaten to rape him on the street when he lived in the street. Over in, Vancouver, over in that gas town, Vancouver, and a bunch of flake balls out there. It was dangerous times, but hey, that's how the road is. We are in a different time and day and age, and people are always going to say, oh, well, It's mental illness. Well, now I notice that my conversations when I post online are all broken up. I write things that doesn't make sense, and a lot of times are all out of nowhere because the therapist said you have bipolar disorder because your subjects change a lot. Well, it only was that way a few years ago. It started because my brain split off from trauma, being traumatized a couple times. And I've had some encounters that are really awful, sexual encounters, and really bad stuff has happened with me. Throughout the years, I just kick to the side and just, it doesn't matter. I just go on meds about it and just work, deal with it. And I noticed that my conversations, when I post online especially, don't make any sense. And all of them are jumbled, and it's like a bunch of mashup. It doesn't make any sense. And my subjects change fast because it's the lowest of bipolar disorder. It's like some sort of a split off personality thing. And when I get, my spirit goes off to and wanders off to places where I'm like walking into it, like into a trailer. But a lot of people are going to write it off like there's no such thing as spiritual things. Like I said, in my 20s, we just laughed at people and were ding dongs that like to just go drink a bunch of booze and alcohol with our Pantera shirts. I thought we were too cool for school. If you don't talk about these things will not get resolved. There's a bunch of this that goes on constantly, and people just kind of cop out on and push it aside, like, oh, yep. And I've done that, and I have done that. And a lot of people are not going to be sympathetic. They're not going to really care. They don't care at all because it's not their problem. They have enough problems of their own. And it's hard to tell people those things because you're scared to get judged. But it's very common. You see the death rate, depression, mental illness problems from trauma. It's very common, and it's definite in my family. Definitely. It's real bad. And discipline could go far and beyond. It could go too much where it's like, okay, that's enough. Remember, there are limits, and there always is limits, for sure.